Hi folks, this is one of the more advanced videos on doing formal proofs with conditionals. What I want you to do is pause your videos now and see if you can answer this question. If I gave you the chance of doing proof A or proof B, which one do you think would actually be easier? Which would take fewer lines? Pause your videos and see if you can imagine how you would do each of them. Okay, the answer is A is easier. Now, if you chose B, there's something I love about that. That means that you're so comfortable doing these tautologies with Boole, you've totally mastered the five-step plan, and so doing B would be no problem. I think that's great. But A is actually even easier than doing that because this only takes 3 lines. Remember how our arrow intro proof works. We need to assume the antecedent, and then we need to get ourselves down to the consequent. That just takes reiterating that thing. So this is no problem. This is even more efficient than the 5-step plan. If you forget how to do arrow intro, remember the templates look like this. Anytime you're trying to prove a conditional claim, you make a new subproof and you temporarily assume the antecedent, and your new goal is to get to the consequent. A biconditional just requires 2 of those subproofs. And the overall point of this video is the following. Whenever you have a conditional conclusion or a biconditional conclusion, planning out arrow intro is the easiest way of solving the proof. So, and this supersedes almost every other rule you can imagine. So don't do a reductio on this. You know, in Boole, when we were doing tautologies, our only approach was to do a reductio because we had no other way of starting the proof. But now that we have conditionals, we have a new way. And if your conclusion is an arrow, never do reductio. It's always a better plan to do conditional proof. So with that in mind, now I'm sending you off into the world to solve something a little more interesting. Pause your videos now and see if you can figure this one out. Okay, that you should have paused your videos. Now, hopefully you knew how to get started here, because I just told you the best way to start any proof when your conclusion is an arrow is to plan out an arrow intro proof. So what you should have done is you should have started a subproof, and there's no mystery here. You just reproduce this exact formula in the conclusion line, and I highly suggest thinking ahead. Put your consequent down here at the end of that subproof, because this gives you a new goal. Forget the fact that you're looking for P arrow Q now. Once you outline this subproof, your new goal is Q. Forget the final conclusion. If you can get to Q, you know how you're going to get the final conclusion because you've already planned out the arrow intro proof. So now think of this as your new proof, what you would do. What would you do? Hopefully you remembered that this negation around a conjunction is sort of an annoying pattern, but there's one thing that's consistent with all of these annoying patterns when the negation bottles up some other information and you can't access it. You always have to build this from the inside. You know you're going to have to construct P conjunction not Q somewhere, and that's going to give you a contradiction. But you cannot do this primitively. There's no 5-step plan for this. And again, P is a literal. So hopefully you thought, okay, now I'm stuck. Now is the time to do a reductio. Don't do a reductio of your original conclusion, but at some point you had to have realized you're stuck now, you got to do a reductio. So if you do a reductio of this Q, we get not Q. And now all of a sudden, if this occurred to you, the light bulbs ought to be flashing in your head because now you know how to build this thing from the inside. You've got P and you've got not Q. So you just have to put those things together and that gives you the contradiction. So just because we're doing an arrow intro proof doesn't mean you can avoid reductio in its entirety. You just have to be strategic about when the reductio is going to become effective. So now that I have the contradiction, I can introduce my negation symbol. And of course, that just finishes my proof. So 7 lines was the fastest way to do it. Okay, thanks.